mythological character of Proteus was a notorious shapeshifter. And would only change his shape if coerced into it. At times in history, it's almost impossible to avoid some sort of confrontation with change.
There's something self-preserving about the natural world, its ultimate adaptation, so that what is familiar and expected often seems new over and over again. Snow in winter, robins in spring, leaves turning in the fall. Every autumn, monarchs do something no other butterflies do. They migrate unimaginably long distances. Monarchs born east of the Rockies typically go to Mexico. Those born to the west go for the most part to the California coast. They travel thousands of miles through uplands and lowlands, across water and along coasts in a journey south and then north again. Climate change creates really odd weather patterns. Snow that comes at very strange times. Tremendous storms. If you're moving spring up, the monarchs get to where they're supposed to go, and there isn't the plant life that they need to survive. What nature had provided in terms of a certain amount of consistency has been taken off the table.
There's no country that hasn't been experiencing intense climate events. Hurricanes, floods, droughts. Climate change is the most inclusive, all-enveloping issue of our time. It's everything. Nothing on the planet is free of it.
We are dealing with drought-type conditions in the state of California and have been for a number of years. So the fuels are very, very dry. Typically, the fire seasons are from May until August. Now we're seeing the fire season start earlier in the year and go longer into the year. We're dealing with volatile fire activity right now. People need to be ready, set, and available to depart on a moment's notice.
I saw smoke and I kept saying that it was up on Cobb Mountain, and everybody kept telling me that it was the mountain over. And the more I saw the smoke, the more that I realised that it was my mountain. I phoned 911. I said that I had an 18-month-old baby trapped in a house up here with no contact, no car. Told them that my mum and my daughter were trapped. Desperation. That's the only word for that. I didn't think about what I was doing or the fact that I was getting so hot. The only thing going through my mind at that point was I just had to get home to my daughter.
I was sitting on the deck with Jessie on my knee, and then the neighbour came over and she said to me, "Pack what you can. I won't leave without you." We only had a couple of minutes before the house went on flames. I was really scared. I didn't know if I was going to see my daughter like that.
We are at our, I should say, former residence. What's left of our house.
We fell in love with this house. And it was mine and Nathan's first family home. It was the third most devastating fire in Californian history.
It's all destroyed. There was a whole community here. There's nothing now.
It takes a lot of stamina for us to confront the grief of what's happening. Change reminds us of our mortality. Coping with change is a deep existential question. My vision for humanity is presence. Because when we're present, we can't harm the way that we're harming things right now.
Stranded assets, fossil fuels that have to be left in the ground to prevent catastrophic climate developments.
The biodiversity threat. It's devastating. Sea level rise, extinction, it's grief-provoking. The remaking of our world and how quickly it's going to start happening is going to have a really intense impact on our psyche. One of the huge implications is sea level rise.
We know about the high tide, you can hear the sirene. When I was young, it was one time every 5-10 years. In the last 5 years, it was more often the high tide. In the past, I remember, it was more slow to come and more quickly to go away. Now is the change. When it's very strong, the tide, it's possible to be with the water on the street for 1 day, 2 days. And then when it's down, we have to clean, because you can imagine it's not clean water. I'm a mask maker. I was born here in Venice, I grew up here. I saw a big difference in the last 4 years, because when I was born, we went in Venice around 120,000 persons, and now we are 55,000. The reason a lot of people go away from Venice was the high tide, because it was not possible to live on the first floor, on the land.
Proteus emerged from the sea, a model or image for the capacity for change. I look upon Proteanism as a rescue process for the self. Without this malleability, we're less likely to survive.
Being a diver for a long period of time and witnessing the seas dramatically change in such a short space of time, I'm really, really concerned. Our oceans are going to be one of the things that we decimate. It's very much an environment that's out of sight and out of mind. It's the heart and lungs of our planet. But they're also delicate ecosystems. Our oceans have absorbed so much carbon dioxide, and they're actually getting more acidic over time, and that's having massive ramifications for marine life. Sculpture's so inert generally, and it's so imposing and solid. My work is constantly metamorphosing into something different. Over time, these generally cement forms are transformed underwater into living, breathing coral reefs. We tend to think in absolutes. We tend to think in final answers. Because these are effectively living organisms, they change. We need to be more adaptive and more changing. And take on the patina of where we are. So I'm currently working here in Lanzarote, in the Canary Islands. Charles, who we moulded today, he's going to be going inside these little boats, which are called joleteros in Spanish, and they're made out of recycled oil drums. Almost done. 30 seconds more. It'll let rock. Rock solid now. You okay?
Cool, not long at all.
Alright, we're going to take you out now.
Okay.
So we're going to try and get the back off first.
Well done.
There we go. How was that?
Not happening again.
What kind of future are we leaving our children? Are they going to be set adrift in these small, fragile boats?
These are overwhelming threats. Most of the time, we go about our lives in the usual fashion, and we don't just become immobilized. But there's something going on in our minds that has to do with fear. A fear of what I call futurelessness. A fear that there's a threat to the human future. They could be suppressed. I use the phrase psychic numbing. But that doesn't mean that the threat doesn't exist somewhere in our minds. The ostensible leaders who still cannot utter the truths of climate change are engaging in profound and dangerous forms of psychic numbing.
Knowing how to integrate grief and face it head on, not ignoring the things that are constantly being lost. Being able to turn that into praise of the things that we love, so that we know how to protect and serve them, is what we need to do now. It's at the moment I'm grieving something that I'm most connected to how much I love what I'm grieving. That for me is awe. The acknowledgement of its impermanence creates wonder. Monarch butterflies weigh about 0.5 gram. And if you look at them, you think they're very fragile. These little insects have to figure out a way to get from the far reaches of Canada to Mexico. Evolution has created this remarkable path that they follow. In order to fly that far, that 3,000 miles, they need to have the right kind of flowers to extract fuel from. In order to procreate, they need milkweed. For the most part, people are monarch butterfly predators not by design, but by default. As when they plant genetically modified corn infused with a toxin aimed at killing corn borers. Which also, through its pollen, kills monarch caterpillars. Or when they spray crops with herbicides and pesticides. When they mow a highway median strip at the wrong time and eliminate thousands of acres of accessible milkweed. The absence of suitable habitat for breeding, migrating, or overwintering breaks a link in the chain and puts monarchs at risk. Everything is connected.
Because of the drought now 4 years running, we are at 100% imported water through Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. The state of California has multiple sources for supply. The most important supply is the Sierra snowpack. The snowpack is next to nil. The Owens Valley was one of the first aqueduct systems that came straight to LA. Bringing that water allowed Los Angeles the ability to grow and become this amazing city in the middle of effectively a desert. Bringing that water to LA metamorphosized what could be possible in Southern California. And unfortunately turned a wonderful part of the state into effectively a dust bowl.
This valley was called Payuhinado, which means where the water always flows. For 100 years, you've been taking water out of this valley. Do you even know where your water comes from? Do you know what people had to sacrifice so that you can have that water to grow green grass and fill up your swimming pools? Water doesn't belong to anybody specifically, it belongs to everybody. My people lived in this valley for thousands of years because we always had this source of water from the mountains, from the springs in the valley.
As many as 43,000 pools exist in Los Angeles County. $7,000 gallons of water evaporate from a typical pool over the course of a year. We can transform ourselves and our environment with what's already there. It's about repurposing the environment that one was left with. A drought in California prompted the draining of pools, which inspired vagabond skateboarders to trespass into backyards. They were like asteroids or moons circling a planet, using centrifugal force to create orbits instead of falling like spent satellites. An empty pool is a perfect place to create a self-sustaining ecosystem. Dennis McClung came to this revelation when he and his partner bought a house just outside Phoenix, Arizona. It had one of the 300,000 pools in the area.
We get very little rainfall. This area is deemed a food desert. We looked at the swimming pool as a challenge. Garden pool grows more than 100 varieties of veggies, herbs, fruit, 365 days a year. The garden pool system starts in the deep end of the pool, where we catch rain and dew. It serves as a cistern. The waste from chickens and ducks fall into the deep end of the pool, where fish also grow. And from the waste, we grow just the right amount of algae, which is the primary food source of the fish. The wastewater from the deep end of the pool is carried with a solar-powered pump. Gravity carries the water back down in a continuous recycling fashion. A symbiosis is living together. If you didn't have the pond plants, you'd grow too much algae and it'd be toxic. If you didn't have the algae, you wouldn't have the food for the fish and the fish would die. If you didn't have the fish, you couldn't grow the plants and I would go hungry. What you have are elements of Mother Nature all living together in balance. Let's assemble the base and then we'll assemble the whole thing over there on site. Garden Pool currently has projects in about a half dozen countries, including Morocco and the sand dunes, in Honduras at a major orphanage. We can create a garden pool system in a place like Haiti, and in 3 months they'll be harvesting. What we've created with Garden Pool is the repurposing of a former status symbol that really wasn't sustainable into a very sustainable system.
We need to make sure that we're stopping future harm. And concurrently make sure that in the moment we're able to face what's already happening. Carbon drawdown is particularly important when it comes to innovations and solutions. There are ways to draw carbon out of the atmosphere that don't require big machinery, that actually have a bunch of co-benefits. We have about 60 years of topsoil left all over the world. Considering the fact that food is a non-negotiable for humans, not having topsoil in 60 years is going to be devastating. Building healthy soil can draw a ton of carbon out of the atmosphere. If you have healthy soil, water storage and capture happens much more easily, which means that you can weather a drought. There will be a super drought in the entire American Southwest coming in the next 30 years.
I'm a farmer out here on the west side of the San Joaquin Valley. My ancestors came from Mexico almost 100 years ago. They were poor, they became farm workers, eventually migrating to the Central Valley. And for me to come from a family that was just farm workers to become a farmer is a huge step. I found my American dream. "40% of my farm is fallow. We grow no crops there as a direct result of the drought. But we are going into a climate change regime. If all the countries get on board, maybe in 50 or 100 years, we'll turn it around where we don't have these droughts. What do we do in the meantime? It's every time that you, the consumers, go to the store and run something to the cash register that tells us what to plant. And they're not telling us to grow drought-tolerant crops. They're telling us they want almonds, they want melons, they want tomatoes, they want cherries, and on and on and on.
We cannot keep on growing limitlessly on a planet which has limited resources. Development currently means economic growth, endless economic growth. More clicks on the cash machines in supermarkets. Growth is not considered debatable. What is needed now is a rethinking of the priorities of our societies. Speed is the basic feature of the machine of economic growth, obliging us to produce more, and to produce more, and to produce more. Speed is something that disconnects us from ourselves. Slowness is needed in order to transform the society. Taking the time to, for example, build a relationship, to go back to ourselves, to go back to our communities. Moving to a lifestyle which is based on less fossil fuels, less material consumption, less luxury housing and less expensive cars, or with no cars, is not gonna make us unhappy. We would gain freedom and we would get more free time. If we really care about our well-being, we could leave fossil fuels on the ground. We could address climate change right now.
An Earthship addresses what I call the 6 issues that humanity has to deal with. We have to deal with water. We have to deal with energy. We have to deal with shelter that is comfortable without fossil fuels. We have to deal with sewage treatment. We have to deal with food. And we have to deal with garbage. It is possible for us to have everything we need to sustain ourselves without having to destroy the planet in getting it. An Earthship is made from 50% materials that we call garbage. Glass bottles and aluminum cans and tires. They're actually made better than a lot of the manufactured building products on the market. Here in this building, we don't need much water because we use it 4 times. You harvest water from your roof and you store it in a cistern. You take a shower with your water that you caught, and then you take that shower and you drain it through planters. And it waters the plants that are producing your food. You can recapture that water and flush your toilet with it. Why would we want to flush a toilet with fresh, drinkable water? And then the toilet water is the fourth use, and it goes through an anaerobic process and grows more food. So we never let a drop of water leave the site. If we could make it so that every human on this planet has everything that they need without anything centralized, all of a sudden stress is gone. Humans would morph into their next phase of evolution. We're caterpillars right now. We're eating everything in sight. I think we could morph into beautiful winged creatures.
Bosco verticale means vertical forest. We transform the perimeter of the building visible for all the citizens. I work with finding a new future for the city, a new future for design. The trees protect the building from the sun during the summer. During the winter, most of the building leaves. Leave the facade free to reduce the energy consumption. The trees produce oxygen and consume CO2 to reduce the pollution in Milan. It's possible to find a way to transform the city.
These 2 days we're at the Ho residence in Long Beach, and we're installing a 4-kilowatt solar electric system. The Ho family, they've got 3 kids, one being a special needs child. They've both been laid off recently. This solar system is really going to be able to help them pay their electricity bills. Our mission is to provide equitable access to solar, both the technology and the jobs. And our vision is that we hope as we transition to a clean energy economy that we include everyone.
We just go to like underserved communities, and we're just really trying to help them put some of that money back into their pockets, back into their children's educations, back into their home. We just upgrade people's houses with these solar panels and just give them out for free. They're already paid for. You don't have to do anything but sign up and qualify. And I think it's something that can change your life.
All right, guys, how we doing?
I came into Los Angeles in 2010. I wanted to continue my education, and I heard about photovoltaics. I was really excited about that. I was invited to come out on an install with them and just fell in love with the way that they do things.
I've been in this industry now for about 10 years, and I just enjoy passing on my knowledge. We're really targeting women and people of color and making sure they have access to this booming, growing industry, to these living wage jobs, good jobs that can't be outsourced.
It just makes you feel good on the inside. Just not all about me and my friends and what we have going on and these new Jordans that's coming out or going to this club or, you know, I just want to help people. And that was a change within myself.
Thank you.
My parents are immigrants from the Philippines. They joined the military. I was able to grow up middle-class America. And I had the privilege of being able to just flip the switch and not have to think about where my electricity came from. The privilege of putting gas in my car and not have to think about where that came from. The solar industry in the U.S. now employs more people than coal workers. It's growing faster than oil extraction jobs. We're installing 10 times more solar now than we were 5 years ago. So it's really exciting that it's taking off. The more people that show the utilities like, hey, we value this, that hopefully this will push the progress faster for the larger scale systems. I would like the vision to be that utilities are producing power with 100% renewables.
We're capable of recreating our imagination to confront climate truths. We've already lost a good deal, but we still have the capacity to prevent many of the more catastrophic dimensions, including planetary threatening or species threatening.
Is the human experiment going to make it? I really don't know. We need systemic solutions that last over time and that don't get stuck in political cycles. When you have a community of people doing the same thing you're doing personally, that makes the system tilt. We need to create the conditions conducive to life. Period.
It's really hard not to be terrified about the changes that we're seeing, which are profound. I gravitated towards monarch butterflies and towards the grandeur of being among them because it gives one a sense of the resilience of species.